Taha Yassin Ramadan has nothing to do with the Dujail affair at all, because the security security is the responsibility of the head of security, and he has nothing to do, and he's not answerable to the senior deputy prime minister. And what he was in charge of was the city planning like Dujail and like other cities too. So the fact that he wanted to plan city from an urban standpoint was not a crime, and some of the actions that were taken. Give him water. He said he's 30. He said he's thirsty. He wanted water, so give him some water, please. Yes. Give them as much water as they need. So the truth is, Mr. Awad, I have a lot of respect for him. No, well, this is not what we're asking you about. We're talking about the three defendants here, not about the former president of the Revolutionary Court. Well, the president, I know exactly who he is. He was my president, my comrade for decades, before he even became head of the state. Now, with regard to Barzan, what do you have to say? Well, Barzan is a friend, and he's my brother. He was in charge of the intelligence, and he has nothing to do with the events of Dujail. Mr. Ramadan, he was senior vice prime minister. He has nothing to do with Dujail. He has nothing to do with the raising of orchards at all. As a deputy prime minister, I knew exactly who each one of them was responsible for. Therefore, I have a complaint to lodge either with you, or if you're not willing to take it, then I will have to ask God to help me out on this score. No, there's no need for that, sir. Please, hold on. We would be delighted to listen to your complaint with all due attention, but this is not the time for it. After this hearing, if you have anything to say, please let the court know about it, either personally or through your lawyer. As an Iraqi citizen, I was the subject of an assassination attempt that resulted in the death of others, and I incurred injuries, and I have shrapnel now in my back. Listen, now you were here in your capacity as a witness, but if you have a complaint, we said, you can either you personally or through your lawyer file the necessary papers before this court. If you have any questions, well, they don't know. The defense doesn't have anything to say. Mr. Prosecutor? Yes. A couple of questions. You mentioned that the defendant, Saddam, has nothing to do with the Dujail events, and that he took steps that comport with the law. Were you ever charged with supervision of anything having to do with Dujail? Is this a question? The answer is no. No. My responsibilities are well known. Now, have you ever been to Dujail after the events? No, I've never seen Dujail. What is your relationship with intelligence? Well, I am an official in the government, and the intelligence is an institution of the government. Do they give you reports? No, no, they don't give me reports, regular reports. No. Well, the director of intelligence, Mr. Barzan, is a good friend of mine. We get together, we meet, we have dinner together. Sometimes he would be busy all day long. And if he were truly involved of the things you were talking about, he would come to me and tell me things about that. But he never did. But the intelligence director, at any rate, is responsible before the president of the United States, of Iraq. I myself, I was a minister in charge of culture and in charge of education. But in that capacity, I was aware of the specialty of each one of my colleagues. I knew very well what the responsibilities of each one were. So that means that you have your own field of specialty, which differs from the other ministers, right? And which means that the intelligence directorate would not tell you exactly what they're doing. But given your relationship with Mr. Barzan, it was not unlikely that he would share with you his point of view regarding some of the activities of his organization. Okay, that's clear. That's clear. I'd like to ask you a last question. Outside the scope of the Dujail issue, because you yourself, you talked about a host of other things outside the Dujail. Here you are a witness in a court of law. You are also a defendant in one of the other cases that are not up for examination yet. That means that you are a detainee right now. And of course, the defendant is innocent until proven guilty. Well, it's been 3 years now I've been detained. Well, I'm talking about 4 years. Suppose, for example, now, in your condition as a detainee and your family, which includes minors, are detained for 4 years. And you are talking about law. You were talking about law earlier. How would be your reaction to that? Well, you have to ask the director of security who would do this. No, I'm asking you. Well, let me tell you, in criminal cases, it is very well known that if a woman, for example, is detained for a criminal action, she can ask for a kid she is breastfeeding to be brought and stay with her. I saw that in Syria when I was detained. That means that sometimes it is possible that the family could request that the minors come and stay with them in the detention center. I think that detaining a minor who has nothing to do with the case is inhumane and illegal, in theory. However, if a man and a woman are detained and they have a 7-year-old kid, for example, it is possible that the mother can ask that her son be brought and stay with her at the detention center so that she can care for him and she could take care of him. So it's very possible that this may happen until the court renders the final decision. Well, as someone who was at the helm of power, well, I was not at the helm of power, but I was a high-ranking official. It is the president who was at the helm, not myself. During your tenure as a government official, when you would hear that there is a court that rendered a decision to execute a minor, what's your reaction? Well, let me tell you, me and Mr. Awad, who was the president of the court, are in the same prison now. Well, I'm talking theoretically. If you hear something like that, what would you say? Well, I haven't followed these things. But what happens if you were to hear something like this? Well, I'm talking theoretically. In 1984, I was foreign minister. As you know, as foreign minister, I have a briefcase in my hands. I was traveling all the time. So I'm not totally aware of what was happening in the country. However, the former chief judge of that court, he told me, and he's in prison with me, that based on the documents that were presented to him, these were not minors. Well, what if it were true? Well, that would be wrong. Well, if it's true, that would be wrong. If it's wrong, that would be a vindictive charge that is completely unfair. Okay, but since you're not involved with Dujail and you're not involved with anything and you didn't have any responsibilities with the events, the prosecution will stop here and we leave it to the court.